Good morning, everyone. It is Seychelle Van Poole here with Keller Williams, and I have a very special guest with us today on Millionaire Mindset, and that is Richard Schulman. Richard is a dear friend, and he is also a top producing team with Keller Williams, and has been consistently ranked as one of the top teams in the entire country over the last 5+ years. And so he's going to deep dive into his business for us today. And we're going to go through a lot of details about how he does what he does and what his business looks like. So, Richard, thank you so much for being on the call with us today. We really appreciate it.
And I'm excited to be here.
So, as we get started, we'll have people jumping on as we go. So, we'll let them go ahead and come on, and they should be on mute. All of you, we should have the chat bar down on the side on your webinar. So if you have questions, we'll be monitoring that throughout, and you can ask questions and we'll make sure we get them answered for you as we go. And this is Richard's contact information. We'll have it at the beginning and at the end. So if you guys have referrals to send, please remember him and his team and make sure that you send referrals to them, because I think after the webinar today, you're going to understand why he will take such great care of your clients. So, Richard, I'm going to jump right in and get us started. Tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into real estate.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for having me on. So I was running a painting business after college. Some of your listeners may have encountered one of these student painting type companies.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you saw that. I did that in college. I did very well at it, despite not really having any painting skills or any skills really, but a friend of mine had done it and he did well, so he kind of validated it for me, and I did it. And I learned a lot about sales and running a business and all that good stuff, and we started growing, doing the leverage piece. But the funny thing was, we didn't really know. Like, I sort of migrated to become a sales manager, and I partnered with an operations guy, which is exactly probably what Keller Williams tell you how to run that business.
Sure.
And there was a recession. This is about 2001, 2 in the Bay Area in California, and I thought I was going to go into like tech banking or something dumb like that. And there was a recession. That was like the first dot-com bubble burst, and all my friends who were getting these cool jobs, started getting laid off or their companies folding. So
yeah,
I thought our painting business was going to be in a lot of trouble because the local economy is bad. But what we didn't know is that the real estate market was sort of zooming at that time. And I remember this one guy, we went to his house and we were so busy, we just threw a stupid high number at him. And
yeah.
He just signed the contract on the spot. And then we realized he was selling it because he's like, his house has gone up so much in value.
Wow.
He wanted to sell it right away. So my partner and I were like, we're in the wrong business. And he got his license. I moved back home to LA and I got my license, and that was that. No more house painting for me. But if you ever have any painting questions, I know everything there is to know about exterior house paint.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question about my cabinets later. That's incredible. So you went, you're looking at the business model going, okay, this is where I need to transition. You jump in and did you interview a bunch of companies? Did you just choose Keller Williams and throw a dart at a wall? What brought you to KW?
So I was 22, 23 then. I really didn't know much of anything. And I interviewed a Coldwell Banker, and they were not really that warm and fuzzy to me. And I interviewed at Remax, but the Remax here was not really a premier office, and they didn't really have a good pitch. Yeah. And then I ended up joining Prudential, which was a premier office in the area. It was their number 2 office in the system, I think.
Wow.
So I joined there. Long story short, after a couple of years, it wasn't really a match. And then I came to KW. KW was new. I had never heard of them before.
Yeah.
But they were near my new place. I moved to the city. And not only were they, they knew I didn't know them. The team leader was really great. I really had a match with him. But he said cap, and it just all clicked for me.
Got it.
And I just thought, man, I was just barely a capper, so it wasn't like such a financial slam dunk the way it is now. I just heard cap, and I'm like, that's amazing. I need to be, because I was at a 60-40 split at Prudential. Wow. And they wouldn't move it up for me.
Wow, forever.
They had this weird system where it was based on your last year's production. So if you sold 10 million, they'd put you on a 70-30, and if you sold 15, you'd be something like that.
Yeah.
And they would just this weird. It was just way too complicated and not not a good system. And I said, listen, it's not enough money. I'm paying you guys way too much, and they refused to move it. And so I took off.
Got it. Well, that makes perfect sense. That's really cool. Yeah. So you get to KW, and what happens to your business? Like, where do you go from there?
So I basically I tripled my business the first year.
Holy.
But the funny thing about it is, and I've told this story before, so I know you guys are all in Texas, so don't take this the wrong way. I sort of thought, all these people from Texas don't know about selling real estate in LA. And I really sort of resisted the whole KW everything to start with. I begrudgingly taught Camp 443, which is now, I can't see the name.
Night, lunch, and yep. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I was teaching, I would reluctantly teach classes. A couple big moments happened though, is one, they really made me, my team leader, who actually is still in my office here in Santa Monica, he made me hire an assistant when I went on vacation. Travel's always been very important to me, and it's actually helped my business a lot.
Yeah.
And so I was going on a trip, and he's like, you've got all these escrows and listings and blah, 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 and you've got to hire someone to watch them. And that person worked for me for several years, actually.
Huh.
So, so slowly, I sort of got more into, okay, maybe these people from Texas have some idea of what they're doing.
Maybe we know what we're talking about, kind of, sort of, possibly.
At first, I was not believing that, but I honestly, it probably cost me a couple $1 million. So if it makes you guys feel better.
Well, I mean, we just want you to succeed. So however that happens, that's okay. So you then start growing, and you're moving forward. Let's take a look at some of your past sales. So in 2014, you did $79.5 million with 150 units. In 2015, you did $99.7 million, almost 100. So close. We should have just rounded that up to 100.
And we closed a big escrow the first day of the new year that year.
Oh, that's almost insulting. With 163 units. And then in 2016, you did $96.5 million for 156 units. And then this year, you're projecting about $125 million, right around 200 units sold. That's really incredible. And those numbers, really are interesting to me, because in a lot of Texas and New Mexico, there are several markets with price points that aren't too different from that. Tell me a little bit about what your sales looks like, because, you said you made assumptions of California or of Texas. We in Texas and New Mexico sometimes make assumptions of California, and that every house is a $4 million house. So tell me about, what do your sales look like so far this year? What are your price points?
So the short story of that is basically I really quickly identified that there's way too much competition in the very high end market.
Yep.
And I get a lot of agents who come interview and they're like, I want to sell $5 million homes. And I'm like, you realize that people doing that are they're models, they're super connected families, or they're on TV. It's not like you just show up and sign up for $5 million homes. It's it's a big business.
Right.
So I always look for the easier way, not to be lazy about it, because I always wanted a volume business. That always occurred to me even before I got really into KW and the whole idea of what we do as a business. But I never wanted to be doing 6 sales a year. My first year at KW I did about 30 sales, and that just worked for me.
Yeah.
It's nice to get a paycheck every week and a half or so.
Yep.
So now we're focusing on a higher market. What I teach my agents, and I think for your agents too, is totally applicable. I teach my agents to look at their dollar per hour return.
Yeah.
If you can sell a $160,000 condo and do it in one showing and 3 hours of work, that's great money. You're not going to get rich off that. That's going to pay your bills.
Right.
But try to find where your highest intersection is of effort and price. So we just try to find you can knock out a 250 sale. Great. Our team average is just about 700 this year.
Okay.
So we try to aim for that, because we do stuff as low as generally in the 2s and 3s, and then as high as the 3s and 4s on the other side. But we're just trying to find out what's the most efficient. So right now we're finding that the $1 million to $1.5 million range is more efficient than some of the other stuff we used to spend more time in. So we're very flexible and we move our market quickly, because you're in a shifting market. Well, we're in a shifting market. I don't know about you guys, but we all will be in a shifting market if we're not already. And if you're stuck in one price point, you can get really hurt. I think you're going to see a lot of agents get really hurt when their farm gets stale and they're not flexible in moving to up market or down market where there's better opportunity.
So okay, I have two questions for following up for you on that. Number one is, do you farm? And number two is, what is the shift currently looking like in your market?
So first, as far as farming, we're not a traditional farming team like a lot of you guys probably are. Right. We are working on developing a few small farms as a complement to our business. We have a lot of streams of business. Okay. And, if one stream dries up, it's not a problem because we have, 8 more. And we have our main one is always our database. So the second half of that answer is that we farm our database. That we look at our database. It's about 29,000 contacts. Wow. I'm sure half of them are dead contacts or more, but we heavily farm that database, and we really stay in touch with our past clients because we know that if we do that, we're getting reviews and referrals from them, and that's the best business that we can get.
And how are you staying in touch with your database?
So we don't do the 33 touch, and I don't want to tell the agents on the call listening to not do the 33 touch if that's what works for them. Sure. We do about 14 to 16 touches a year. So we do a global email every other month. Okay. We do a paper mailer with a notepad 3 times a year. We do a phone call 4 times a year, and we do a few other emails here and there if something really exciting is happening. Got it. So it ends up being somewhere about once a month, a little bit more than once a month.
Got it. Do you guys do client events or anything like that, or not really?
We don't. I think client events are a great thing. I've talked to a lot of agents who are doing them. Our geographic area is so wide that it's really, and with our traffic, I know you guys have a big market and traffic problems too, but people in LA are not going to drive more than 10 minutes to go. So like for a free apple pie, they'll be like, oh, can you just deliver it to my house or ship it to me? They just won't leave their house to do that.
So you have to find more creative ways to get your people because they're not necessarily going to come drive to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
thanks for fixing that for me.
Yeah. So, talk to me about your team. What's it look like right now?
So our team's gone through a lot of metamorphosis. It's really changed a lot, and the problem is I can't stress this enough. Going back to my story of joining KW, is that I did everything backwards, and hopefully if I can share one thing with people on the call, I don't really know the audience of who's going to be listening, but if you're building a team or you have a smaller, newer team, I would say that the book pretty much has everything exactly right.
Got it.
There's maybe some small variations, but I spent a lot of time trying to do my own thing or trying to outthink these people from Texas, and like I said, it really did cost me a lot of money. So we've spent a lot of time building and growing and fixing. I interview constantly and recruit constantly, okay. And I will hire talent. I also retain my people constantly. The 2 names on there, Heather and Kevin, are both with me 6 years or more. Wow. And I have a couple more people with that type of tenure, which basically is the whole lifespan of the team in its current form.
Right.
So we do the showing assistant model. We start people off. If you want to move here, say I would start you off as a showing assistant. Okay. We'd like you to do 6 to 12 months in showings or admin. Our 2 top agents, Heather and Aaron, both started in admin and then moved to showing, then to sales.
Interesting. So they started as admin and then moved to a showing agent?
Yeah, and the reason why it's fairly interesting. My observation there is that the people that they did admin, Heather and Aaron are the 2 most orderly people on the team. Huh. Like they're like, if you had someone you needed someone to follow 25 precise directions, it would be those 2.
Do you think part of it is because they understand it? Like they had to do it so they understand it, or is it they just naturally are really organized people?
Well, both. I mean, they're naturally organized and focused on completing a project type people. Yeah. But we break down our sales role to very simply like make phone calls on this schedule. Yep. Here are the scripts that you use, and here's how you execute. Step 1 through 100 on making a sale. Got it. And the people who come in who are natural salespeople, the smooth talkers, they use their natural talent to skip, half the steps. And they may still get results, but it's a different end product or different conversion rate.
Right, you're chasing paperwork.
Yeah, exactly. So, so we've tried to give everyone opportunity. When you build a team that gets bigger and bigger, retention becomes an issue, right? So if it's just you and one person, you guys are best friends, it's fairly easy to retain that person. We'll say fairly for now, right? Like there's other complications, but when you have a bunch of people and it's hard to like even be in touch with everyone or even, socially see everyone and in order to maintain a relationship. So everyone has opportunity to grow on the team. And so the path is clear for them that, they can move up, and if they move up and do the right things, that we're going to give them opportunity. So Kevin went from sales to sales manager. Okay. So he's in charge of recruiting and training new agents and showing assistance.
Awesome.
Heather has a couple of new agents that she's training and mentoring. Erin is starting with her first one. So they're all going to have an override interest in those agents, and that'll give them the opportunity to do something other than just rely on sales for their stream of income.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question for you. This is really interesting. So you're creating a career path, which is really cool. It's not just please come in and do this one role until you die. You're creating a career path and then pouring into your people for leadership, which I think is one of the many reasons why your team members come and want to stay with you. I think the other thing I'm seeing here, though, is you kind of almost have pods that you've built with Heather and with Kevin. Do you foresee yourself having like one large, big buy team or one large, big listing team where everybody reports up under one person, or are you kind of trying to divide it more into pods?
The original idea was to have Kevin run the whole team, and effectively he runs more of the team, like the majority of the people, the new people, and Kevin actually runs the expansion agent as well. Although that's a new thing for us, so we're both doing it together. Although he'll ultimately have full responsibility for that. I'd like there to be like sort of one centralized thing, but I had Heather, who's been with me for a long time before Kevin, and I can't go to Heather and say, well, Kevin's your boss now. She's like, I've been here longer than Kevin and sell more than him. So, but she also is great at training people, and she's brought on a few agents on her. She's recruited a few agents herself. So, we gave her the opportunity to train those agents for her benefit, however she sees it. So some of it is that they're going to help her as an administrative role with her work or a junior sales role like a showing assistant. And now a couple of them are migrating into sales where Heather will be responsible for those sales.
Got it.
That was just a function of we had this person who had a set of skills and abilities and desires, and we had to create something that worked for her to make her the happiest. Mm-hmm. And I don't mind going out of model to do that. Now, I don't know if that works if you have an 80-person team, but for us, it made sense.
Well, what I like about what you've done is that this person, Heather has value and has tenure and sounds like she's a respected team member and has a lot of opportunity. It just may look like different opportunity than what you would think of to be like the Frankenstein model of if you could build this perfectly, right? You're looking at it going, what makes the most sense to create value for this person that's awesome on our team? One thing we were talking about is you guys are a highly profitable team. Talk to me about your strategy behind why you guys are so lean doing 125 million. I mean, this is a really lean team. I don't see many people on here.
We have to say that way. So the answer is that I'll give you a quick example. Is that I was on one of these calls, a regional call in Northern California with Craig Rieger, and he said something like, he gave me an example of a story of where he was cutting expenses from his market center, and he said, "What are you doing, Richard, for the market shift?" And I said, "We're not doing, we're not cutting anything because we've already cut all the bad expenses out. Right. We're very aggressively like I mentioned, I had done venture capital before. I was looking at going into like some type of iBanking role. Right. And we just very aggressively look at our efficiency on every different thing that we're doing. So I'll hire someone, and if it costs me, if I have to bring in $2 million of sales to offset them, as long as I can get $3 million in sales out of them, I'm happy. Of course, I'd like a lot more than that. But we're just always looking at how to make the most profit. So what we were talking about before was basically, I'm not trying to build a team to go around and saying I have a team that has 100 people or 15 people or whatever. I'm just trying to make the most money possible. And everyone on the team has to basically justify their role and why they're getting paid and what they're doing. And we review that with them. We're very clear with them about that, this is a business for us and for them. And by giving people like Heather and Kevin business interest in what we're doing, it helps them motivated. Kevin calls me and says, is this a good expense for us? Is this a good expense for us as a team? Because they all know that the more money the team makes, everyone shares in that pie.
Got it. That's awesome. And one other thing we talked about before the call is, does everybody on your team just do buy side, just do listing side, do both? Tell me a little about your strategy behind that.
Okay, yeah. So we don't. I know a lot of the big teams use like a Boomtown type product, and they all work a common pool of leads. Is that how you guys do it?
We do a Boomtown, yes.
But do you have people just calling through the database, or is each client assigned to one person?
Each client's assigned to one person.
Okay, so we do it that way. A lot of the big teams, I think, do it where they're just, a client care rep or an ISA is calling through saying, do you need anything? This is the big agent team in the neighborhood. We started, we just always made sense to keep those relationships.
Right.
And for me, it never made sense that, my buyer's agent's going to keep a relationship with someone for a long time if they're not incentivized. So
got it.
It always just made sense to me to do listings. I know that wasn't always the case with teams, but for us, it always made sense that if you went out there and hunted and got something, that you could keep it. So if you're on my team and you meet a seller at an open house, that's your listing.
Right.
And we have the same split for everything. We don't have a variable split. And so if your client, if you sell someone a house and then they want to sell it a month later, 10 years later, if you're on the team, that's your lead, that's your seller to work. So we want our agents going out there and building relationships, maintaining relationships, and capturing clients for the long term.
That's great. And then you're helping them, though, once they do capture that client, you're helping them to stay in touch with that person in the long run and carrying some of those operating expenses to help make sure that relationship stays there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do a lot of the bulk global marketing to the whole database for them to leverage them out, because no point in having 8 people doing the same thing. So we do that centrally, but they're responsible for staying in phone contact with their clients and keeping that relationship up and asking for referrals.
Got it.
That's hard to enforce, but they just have to understand the value at the end of the day is that, and I hear you laughing because I know it's the same problem. It's like, you have to understand that if you have a happy client, stay in touch, because you never know when they're going to sell.
Yep.
And you never know when they're going to have a friend who wants to buy or sell.
And that's something where with our team, that's why we put together those 4 events a year. And we kind of move them, like a couple of them we move around the Metroplex so that it hits different parts of our database each year. But we just started putting that in. So we had 4 reasons to call and ask for business every single year. And it just made it a lot easier for our sphere. So we talked about.
So
go ahead.
Your event. I'd ask you questions or no?
Yeah, go.
How does that work?
Yeah, sure. Fair game.
So, and we're reading a book called The Power of Questions now, so I feel weird not asking you a lot of questions. But so, what are your events that you do?
Our first one is, so I'll go from like the beginning of the year to the end of the year. They aren't necessarily the order that we implemented them in, so I'll let you know that. Our first event we do each year is Portraits in the Park, where we offer free mini photo sessions for our clients to be able to use. And we have, I guess,
like if I want pictures with my kids in the park type of thing.
Yeah, we do.
Not like
we do
headshots.
It could be anything. So we do it strategically right before Mother's Day, so that husbands have a gift that they can give mom, grandparent, grandmother, daughter. It's an easy gift opportunity. And really the idea for our events was, how do I insert our team into conversation points with a client? And so if somebody has a family photo up on their wall, someone's saying, oh, wow, that's a great picture of your family. Well, thanks. My realtor gave me that. It immediately inserts us into a conversation around something that somebody naturally is going to comment on. And I liked the idea of it because selfishly, I don't have any good family pictures. It's always one of us always taking a picture. So I was like, well, selfishly, I'm going to get a family photo out of this. But really, let's open it up to our clients. And it's cool because we've had, a dad passed away. And so the daughter does like a mother-daughter shot with her mom for the first Mother's Day when her father passed away. We've had clients of ours start new businesses and need headshots for all of their new salespeople. We've had people bring them and their dogs. We've had engagement photos, baby, newborn pictures. We've had pregnancy shots. We've had senior pictures. Just straight family photos or photos of kids or grandparents and their grandkids. It's really neat because I think it's a great way to connect, that you can have kids involved, that creates a conversation piece. It's not your biggest client event we do every year, but I would say it's a really high touch, high quality one for our VIPs. Then summer we do a movie event. So coming up on July 15th, we give away free movie tickets, and they just have to come in a 2-hour window and pick up their free movie tickets for their family. So I think right now we have close to 500 RSVPs for that. Then
they just have to come to our office and grab the tickets.
Yeah, they come. We actually just do it up at a central movie theater location. They just in a 2-hour window on a Saturday come pick up their tickets. And then if it's someone that's really VIP, we made the mistake last year of mailing the tickets out, which really defeated the purpose because we weren't having those conversations and having that connection point. So now we're only mailing out ones if it's like a real VIP that's actually sent us business, or sent us referrals. Because we didn't get the bang for the buck out of the ones that we mailed out. We only got the return on the ones that we saw in person. And then in the fall, we do a pumpkin patch, again, inserting ourselves into the conversation of people love to go and do, the pictures of the kids at the pumpkin patch. So it might as well be ours. And we do carnival games and face painting. Shannon, who I think is actually on the call, this last year we met at the pumpkin patch. She was at the park before us and hosting her son's birthday party. And they were so cute, all these boys running around. We ended up folding their birthday party into our pumpkin patch and had bouncing and face painting and trick-or-treating. And, she actually ended up joining our team from it. So it was a great experience. And then our last one we do is we give pies or bundt cakes away at Thanksgiving. And I think we did close to 400 of those last year. But I mean,
so you plan the event, then your team calls the database,
right,
and messages that to them. What do you do at the event to what stops me from just running up, grabbing a pumpkin or a photo and then taking off?
So we have the RSVP, so we know who's coming. The second is when you show up, we have team members assigned to different jobs. So someone's going and walking around with Starbucks gift cards for if you write a review about us online, we'll give you a gift card. And then we're asking for referrals when we call to get the RSVP. We're asking for them at the event. And then if people didn't show up, we're calling to say, gosh, we really missed you. Wish you were here. Hope to see you at the next event. And the Peters group, Peters Company out of the East Coast actually taught us that, where you actually get more referrals out of the gosh, we missed you than you do out of anything else on it. So don't miss that point. But it gives.
I'm writing.
Yeah, you're good. Luckily, we're recording this too, so you'll be able to go back and listen to it. But yeah, so it allowed us to have that touch point though, which I think you so beautifully put, that it's difficult to know what to call about, what to say. Some of these people have been in their home 5 to 7 years. You're like, so hey, did your dishwasher break? I hope you're still married. Please don't tell me you got divorced because that's going to be weird. If you haven't talked to them in a long time, what do you say? So having an item of value to call around really makes that an easy conversation. So yeah, you talked about, your business is your database, which is awesome. I love that. And where else does your business come from?
All right, so I have data for you. So this year, for the first time, we actually started tracking, and we maybe have to refine it a little bit, but
I'm very proud of you. Okay, so where's your business coming from?
Our sphere of influence is our number one lead generator with $8.5 million closed.
Okay.
And then we had referrals was another 3.7.
Okay.
So that would be if someone in the sphere referred to someone. So right there, you're at something like 12 million.
Yep.
And that gives about a quarter of our business.
Yep.
We also, on top of that, had repeat clients. So someone in our sphere who had already done a deal. We may not need all these breakouts, but we did this so we'd be
I like
granular.
that. We did the same thing with ours, and I like that because it shows you where to put your focus. I think that's great. So then what does repeat clients look like?
So that's 5.5. So you're at like 18 plus million right there. Just that's all sphere. I mean, that's, however you want to call that. And then so then we had referrals from agents. I decided this year that my big focus would be getting referrals from agents, and we've done over $3 million in closings there. Okay. We have a lot of sources. I have like 11 codes, I think, for stuff that's done over $1 million. Yelp has been good to us, $2 million. Okay. Zillow has been $5 million.
What was $5 million?
Zillow. Dave Ramsey, our mailers have done some business. It's a lot of things, but I mean, look, if you're on the call, you're a newer agent, newer team. The lesson here is I went to family reunion with my checkbook open, metaphorically, because my wife doesn't let me keep a checkbook. I'm irresponsible. But I went there and I said, I'm going to grow the team. My MAPS coach, Drew Lee, said you have to increase your marketing spend because you're too efficient. And if you increase your marketing spend, so I went there and I looked to spend money, and all I could find was basically that, all these things are just trying to sell them in the same pool of leads, right?
Yeah.
And we need to just reinvest all that money into our database and our sphere. Now we're doing some farming, but we doubled down on our sphere, which for me includes agents. Being on this call is great because I get some exposure to an area of the country that may not know me. Right. But So we looked at doing that type of work that would get us in touch with people that we already knew. And I think Gary made that point coincidentally at Family Reunion as well, that basically we need to build a wall around our database and treat it like a membership club, which is exactly what you're doing with your events, and just really hammer on getting business from those people. And it's just so much easier than trying to go buy new business or acquire new business. Is getting business from people you already know.
It's a much easier conversation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So one thing I want to touch on while we're on talking about where do you get your business from is you've been really intentional about agent-to-agent referrals. You've also been really intentional about getting reviews from your clients. And I know that at the beginning of the year when we talked that had helped contribute to your Yelp business and your Zillow business. Talk to me about how you guys are doing that and when during the transaction you're asking for those reviews or referrals.
Well, I'm hoping you can hear me shuffling some papers around because I have that here.
Yes.
So we're not doing a good enough job of it.
Sure, we can do better.
So my wife works in the business, and she does the books and she does a few other operational type things. But I basically distilled her role as far as the team down to, I want her to laser focus on referrals. So she actually reports accountability numbers to me every week, which includes our referral counts. We can do a separate call on the conversation of asking your wife to do accountability reporting to you, especially if she's not in the business already and doesn't think that's a thing that you should be doing constantly. A very, very weird conversation. So basically, her job is just to track all the sales. So I had her print out last week all of the recent sales from the last quarter that didn't have referrals or reviews, and everyone on the team had to go through and contact those people. So we're not doing a good enough job, but we should be asking for reviews and referrals at the first meeting, at our buyer-seller meeting. We should be asking on the opening of escrow and right before the close of escrow, and then again after the close. So that's when it should be done. The reason I say it's really important to ask just before the close is a lot of your clients will go dark on you at closing, and you may not hear from them again for 3 months until their dishwasher breaks or whatever you mentioned before, right?
Right.
So that's what we should be doing.
That's smart. One thing I had probably a misguided thought on that was to ask at closing, but they're distracted with a bunch of other things. I like the idea of doing it right before the closing because you have an idea right before closing whether or not it's a positive experience, what their take is. You've got a good vibe on that right before closing. So doing that right before is awesome. I think. And
I can tell you, I have clients who are effusive with happiness at the result of their transaction. They'll send us a present or something or other, and then literally we have people we never hear from again.
Right.
Our market's a little different, just so you know, like a very high percentage of our sellers are basically like parachuting out of California. Right. They're probably moving over to Texas.
A lot of them are moving to Texas, yes.
Yeah, so a lot of our sellers will, like, I'm looking at my sheet right now of the recent sellers that I had this quarter. We don't have referrals from yet or reviews, and almost all of them moved out, like took their money and moved out of state. Wow. So those are people we're not going to have any further relationship with. And once they have their check, they have no incentive to write us a review, even though, I'm looking at some of these and we just killed it for some of these people. We just did got an incredible result for them. And you have to go back and beg them for a review. We have a nice email put together. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's a profound statement. Once they have their check, they have no incentive to write us a review.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a big thing for me. That's huge.
Yeah. And then the upshot of all that is that we get a lot of business. It's hard to track online business because they may contact you through your website, but they've already looked at your Zillow profile and your Yelp reviews. And if you don't think that they're doing that, you're wrong. They just don't. They don't know. Like you ask them, they don't. I don't know. I saw you online.
Right.
Like which? I don't know. But they were on Yelp for sure. There you go.
Yeah.
They were on Zillow. They know. They looked you up already.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and look at that. So, this is your Yelp profile. Yelp weeds out like at least 50% of the reviews that get posted. That means you guys have been really purposeful at it with 113 5-star reviews. I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah, my wife was in charge last year. She got about 50 Yelp reviews last year.
Wow.
So as a bonus, I said she could have another baby. So that was
and you are pregnant right now with baby number 3.
Yeah, so I gave her. She got a daughter because she got so many reviews. I gave her a third daughter. So
I hate to see what the stakes are going to be this year. I think
there's maybe a vacation or a card or something.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to step that down, or you're going to have like 20 children at the end of this.
Good.
So let's talk about. You talked about your beautiful wife, and you do have 2 adorable little girls. A third one on the way. I think one thing a lot of us struggle with when we're building teams is that work-life balance, is that quality of life, is how do I keep my marriage healthy? How do I see my kids and not kill myself in growing this business with these big, hairy, audacious goals at the same time? This is something I think you've been really purposeful about. Talk to me about how you do this.
Well, there's not like a simple answer for that. I think the first thing I always tell people about real estate, the first thing I learned in my real estate class was that real estate's kind of a crappy job in the sense that the hours are really bad and the stress demands are bad and the pay is inconsistent, right? Mm-hmm. So all these things are huge negatives for any career. And I tell people when they come and sit down, I said, I walk them through, like, people are going to be really mean to you and then not pay you. Like, are you okay with that? So the first answer is you have to make a fair amount of money to stay in this job. If you're really doing this job and you're taking the calls at night and you're pausing the Bachelorette because you have to go do something, that takes a toll on your family. So there has to be a financial incentive that you say, okay, well, we're making some sacrifices, but because of that, we're able to either do more, like we can go on more vacation or we can provide some other benefit. And I hate to be so I don't know what the word is, but I hate to be so practical about it, but for me, it makes sense. So the other thing is you just have to really use your flexibility in the right way. So I usually come home from work around 3:30 or so to play with the kids. And then I'll usually do some work in the evening or maybe have an appointment in the evening. But I try to come home early and make sure I give them time, because otherwise it's too easy to get home at 6 and then dinner time and bedtime. And as you know, as a mom, that's I don't know. You may like that time. I find that bedtime, bath time is like just very a lot of difficulty with that. It's not the best time with the kids.
Yeah.
But so I try to be there for good time with them. I try to do stuff early in the morning with them before there's a lot of stuff going on. Just very purposeful about carving out that time for them. And then we travel a lot. Just because traveling for me, I love to travel, and traveling is great. In the we just went to Europe, the 4 of us, mm-hmm. and for about 2 weeks, and you're just off. You're 9 hours off on time. You just have this great excuse to turn your phone off, mm-hmm. and while they're while they're all going to the bathroom or something, or they're all going to get dressed, obviously I have 3 girls, so that's a process. That gives me time in the morning to get ready, do all my emails, respond back, so it's, so we try to do a lot of that because it's a great way for me to really get out of the office a little bit. So that was sort of a rambling answer, so I apologize for that.
Well, I think it's an honest answer. So a couple follow-ups to that. When you first started like taking breaks in the afternoon so that you could see your kids, did you ever worry about what your clients would think about that, or if you would lose any business from it?
No. So LA with our traffic, first of all, if I don't leave my office by 3:30, the traffic's just really, like, my commute can almost triple. I don't really live too far, but I can go from a 15-minute drive home to 40 minutes if I stay till 5 o'clock. So in 5 years in this location, I've probably stayed past 5 o'clock like twice. People don't want to see properties generally between 4 and 7 because of the traffic, or they're using a showing assistant. We have the leverage piece. And so our clients, we sell the leverage to our clients, and they like that because they understand that Richard's here when they need him, or the agent they're assigned to is here. And sometimes there's a showing assistant that makes everyone's life easier. That means that they can have more flexibility on when they want to see it, right? So that means that they understand that I can see a property almost anytime I want because Richard or the agent may not be available, but we have, probably 4 or 5 different showing assistants that could possibly show the property to them. So they appreciate the flexibility, but we generally people just don't want to see properties during rush hour, which is fine with us. We don't want to be out there driving around. But they, I hear a lot of stuff from like Tim Ferriss. I'm a big fan, obviously a big fan of Jay Papasan. And those guys talk about setting email times and, only responding at certain times. And I know other agents do that. If you're a commission salesperson, I don't think you have that luxury. So I may not be fully available, but I'm definitely looking at my phone, and once in a while there's a fire that needs to be put out. But the funny thing is like right now I'm not looking at my phone, and whatever fires pop up from 8:45 till 10 a.m., like half of them will solve themselves, and the other half I can just deal with in a few minutes when I hop off the call with you guys. So, and then circling back, boy, I'm really rambling today. We'll have to edit this later on.
I like it because you're being honest in your answer. I mean, I think what I'm hearing from you too is sometimes I think we put more importance on ourselves and what we think that we can do during the process that sometimes will work itself out. And if we are available every 5 seconds for a client, that almost creates kind of a pacifier situation. Not to use little kid analogies because that's the world I'm in. But it's that, when a kid's learning how to use a pacifier, if they never learn to put it back in themselves, you're constantly in their bedroom all night sticking that freaking pacifier in their mouth, So if we can keep that from happening, I think it definitely would be an ideal scenario in teaching them how to plug the hole themselves.
That's what I was trying to say in a lot longer sentence.
No, I think it makes sense. I think sometimes we think we're almost more important than we are. I know I'm guilty of that sometimes. I almost allow myself to be a crutch when I don't need to be. That can limit our growth. I think the idea of completely unplugging forces that to allow itself to take care of itself, and the things that haven't, it's not like you're leaving people abandoned out there for days at a time. You're circling back at strategic times to make sure that the items that haven't cured themselves are being taken care of.
Yeah, and I'll add one more note on that because I've been coaching some of my agents through like growing big businesses. I have one agent who's 13 months in and she's got 8 escrows open right now, which is for our market is absurd.
Okay.
And we've been really working with her on understanding that if she doesn't she doesn't have to be there hand holding her clients 24/7. That by pulling back, because the big thing is they want to go and just handle all their escrows and not generate new ones. And we're saying leave your escrows alone. They're 7 of 8 of them are going to close no matter what, and 1 will end up causing you a problem. Mm-hmm. But you have to go out there and hit the phones and turn off your email for a couple hours. Yeah. And by doing that, you realize that a lot of these things solve themselves, or everything gets easier. Yeah. And it's the same thing with traveling. I encourage them to travel. I've got 4 agents out of the country right now, which is not great planning. but they're going to all come back and realize that, geez, they're out of the country and like their businesses move forward and their escrows move forward and it's all okay.
I think that's really awesome. And I think also too, we treat people how to treat us, and so, or teach people how to treat us. And so when we're teaching somebody how to treat us, I remember my first $1.5 million deal, we had, a seller. It was my first time, in a higher end market here in North Texas. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like 24/7, if you need me, I'm here, whatever you need, I'll be right there. And it got to a point where he would call me at 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night, 1 a.m., blowing up my phone. And I wasn't sleeping. I was totally stressed out. And it was my own fault. And that was the worst part, was I had no one to blame but me. Because I told him 24/7, I'm there for you. And he took me at my word. And so, I think it's that teaching other people how to treat us. Put on your phone, if you're calling after a certain time, your call will be returned the next day. Let them know you're going to be out of town. Set an action plan and a backup plan that if they, you're going to be out of town, that there's a plan, that they're not being just dropped off, but there's a plan on how they're going to be taken care of.
So let me ask you this. So you're still in production, right? And so, like, when I work with you, do you introduce me to your admin?
Yes.
So one of the
not only do I introduce you, Richard, or any team member introduce you to our admin, it's an upsell.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Is how do you position that?
Richard, so just so you know, when we're working with you on a successful sale of your home, we want to meet and exceed your expectations. So you're going to be hearing from my listings manager, Erica. She actually used to run the School of Real Estate. She's a licensed realtor, and she is exceptional at making sure you have everything you need to get your home on the market. So while I'm sitting here focused and intently listening to you, we're making sure with Erica handling everything behind the scenes to make sure your home is ready to hit the market. Does that sound good to you? Right? And then we pass it nicely off. But she manages that process. She absolutely is our listings manager.
I think that's great. I think that's really good. So, and do you do anything else with her? Like, do you have her like purposely intervene in the transaction?
Oh yeah. I mean, basically from the time, if I'm talking to you about your listing and we're signing paperwork today, because you're absolutely going to sell your house with me, Richard, from the point of me leaving this meeting today to the time you go on the market, Erica runs that entire process. And then once you are on the market, we're going to be having the pricing conversation. We're going to be negotiating the offers together. But Erica's the one that's following up on all of your showings. She's the one that's processing all the offers and looking for multiple offers for you. So she's integral in that listing process. The same with our transaction manager, Kristen. It's the same thing. She's integral in that process where, they'll probably hear from Kristen more than they will that team member once we've opened escrow or once we've written a contract.
Yeah, that was a big change for me, is doing it more like that. Mm-hmm. And if you're on the call and you're building a team, I think that loop, that system that you just described, and we have basically the same thing.
Yeah.
It is so crucial. The only thing I would add to that is I tell people that when people ask about the team a fair amount, because in LA teams are still less common than in other parts of the world, or we're competing against an individual agent or maybe an agent plus one assistant a lot. And so the team can be a pitfall for us. So I purposely go out of my way and say, here's what Richard does. And I explain to them that you don't want me setting up your photographer and doing all that stuff. And then my admin gets on the phone with them and gets involved with them, and they start contacting her directly for things instead of me.
That's great.
And that just makes my life so much easier to not have to get where's the photographer calls.
Right.
Because I'm not involved in that loop or process at all, and someone else is dealing with it. So I just really am clear with them about that. I'm here to handle the negotiation and oversight of your transaction, and that's what they want anyways. Right. They're happy with that.
Well, and you represent a standard and a certain level of experience. I think, when I walk into Nordstrom's, I'm not looking for the founding family to be there. When I walk into Neiman's, I'm not looking for the, Stanley Marcus, who's no longer alive, right? But I'm not looking for his family to be there. It's the standard that they represent. It's, I know.
Right?
Right. Exactly. And so, there are a lot of things that I'm not naturally the best at. There's actually a ton of things that I'm not really good at. And so to try to pretend to do that, it would take me 4 hours to put a home on the market where it takes Erica 20 minutes. I mean, just hands down, there are things that our team members do far better than we could ever dream to do. So why would we try to do that?
Agreed.
Yeah,
Agreed completely.
I think that's awesome. Well, and I think you're totally right. It's all in the upsell, right? It's all in, and I mean that because you really have to upsell that experience or they feel like they're handed down to somebody else, and that's not the case at all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you're not clear about it, I think they're secretly going back and thinking Richard's going to hand me off to someone, and I
Uh-huh.
want Richard, or I want, but because I can go hire the other guy who's like it's just him or just her.
Right. But I think when you show the value of what all you can do when you have leverage and help, there's no reason why somebody would ever not want to hire you. And I obviously like follow you on Facebook too, in addition to like seeing you and talking to you regularly. But I love when I'll see you at a listing appointment and I see you actually signing paperwork, and getting paperwork signed with somebody else's pen. It just absolutely cracks me up.
I talked to Marie yesterday too.
Yes.
If anyone wants to send me their pen, I'll sign a listing with your pen, and
It makes me
it's
so happy. I love that because it's a silly way of saying like I'm really 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 good at what I do and I like to have some fun too, which I think is awesome. What have I not asked you that I need to ask you?
The only other thing I would add, first of all, you're an excellent interviewer, so I hope everyone on the call appreciates that. You asked some good questions, and I think what's important on these types of calls is not just to listen like while you're at the gym or in traffic or something, but to like pick up a few things to work on. So I think you asked a lot of great questions. Thank you. One thing I'll add, a lot of what I do and probably what you do is not, we're not doing anything differently than what other agents are doing or what they have the opportunity to do. I think that the reason that we're more successful is possibly that we're more focused on an end goal or more purposeful in executing our visions. But all the stuff I do is easy, right? There's nothing I've said on the call is rocket science or something that you couldn't pick up from another podcast. It's just putting it together. Something that we've had a lot of success with this year that's not as out there as much, but I assume will be, is we've done a lot of work with our team as far as personal wealth building. I know like Five Doors is doing it too, and a lot of other people are, and I think that will come more to the forefront. But we've been really purposeful about personal wealth building for our team members, showing them the upside of real estate. And then we've also been really purposeful about part of that journey is we've done a book club, a very aggressive book club. We've read a lot of books this year,
Cool.
and I've seen a lot of positive benefit personally and through our team of doing a lot more training and learning. So
What have been,
that part you guys
what have been
knew.
the best books that you guys have read?
So right now we're reading The Power of Question.
Okay.
I do Audible because I can't sit down and read for more than 2 minutes. The Power of Habit is good. So we did Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I find it to be fairly simplistic, but if you're running it for your team and they've never done anything like that before, it's a good starter.
Mm-hmm.
4 Disciplines of Execution, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Fanatical Prospecting, Grit, Richest Man in Babylon, Extreme Ownership, which was I think Diana's Book of the Year or something like that.
Yep.
And then a really good book if you're running a team is Delivering Happiness by the Zappos guy, Tony Hsieh.
Nice.
So that'll keep anyone who wrote all those down, keep busy for a year.
Yeah, that's a definite year's worth of books. That's awesome. And then if you were gonna, let's say, I'm big on building wealth and working through that with team members too. I think it's a really powerful thing we can do. So, what advice would you have to me or anybody else looking to build wealth for their team and to help expand that mindset? Where would be the first place you would start?
So, obviously I own rental property. I believe in the power of real estate as the simplest and easiest investment to really, for especially for anyone who's listening to this call. So the first thing is buy your own home.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously a lot of our agents don't have their own home yet, or they're working on that. So that's our first step. And then it's just about building a plan to acquire rental property. I think that with the income you can make in real estate and the money you can make on rental property, I think that if you're productive agent. You don't have to have a huge team. You don't have to be making a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing a solid business year in, year out, and you purposely invest your money in rental properties,
right.
I think you should be able to retire in somewhere between 10 and 15 years.
Got it. Love
you
that.
may not choose to retire, but you'd have the the luxury of being able to.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, Richard, I can't thank you enough for your time today. This has just been absolutely fantastic. And I've got 5 or 6 action items that we will be taking with our team, so I really appreciate it. And for all of those of you on the call, please make sure that when you have referrals anywhere in the Los Angeles area, that you are making sure you send those over to Richard. And we just thank you so much. This has been fantastic. So we really appreciate you.
I'm glad we had this conversation.
Likewise. I appreciate it, bud. Well, I hope you have a fantastic week, and all of you that are on the call, thank you, and I hope you guys got a lot of takeaways out of this too. I know I sure did. So have a great week.
Thanks, guys.